too. A lot of people don't know that Saint Valentine was really a real person. Kathy Walters, every time this comes around, she will then put that story up. I can't remember the story, but usually there's quite a good story. And she does it when St. Patrick comes along. She also says, he's a real guy, and there was a real anointing on his life, and it's not just green things and clover leaves. And yeah, what's that, Green?
St. Patrick's is green.
That's what I said. That's what I thought I said. St. Patrick is green. My wife is helping me today. So Doreen and I, speaking of Valentine's, we're almost ready to hit year 44 in April. We're 44 years married, still going strong. Good days. So, okay, well, listen, we have Robin Bullock on in just a moment. I'll see if there's any announcements. Be sure you subscribe to ElijahList.com. When you do that, every time the show's over, into your inbox will come the link to the show, the photos and intro to it, the title of it. So you can not only just watch it from there real quick, but you can send it on to friends. So that's probably one of the primary reasons. Or if we get kicked off, I think Johnny Enlow has now been kicked off. Two things. So when we have him on soon, he will be on Rumble only, but most of the time we're able to do it on all the different sites. So, all right. Well, listen, without further ado, let's bring in Robin Bullock. This is Intelligence Briefing, and my apologies, I always forget to I think this is 36. I think this 36. Is number 36, so it's a good round number. But, well, Robin, I have a question to ask you to start this out. So, I got the first chapter of your book, The Pool and the Portal, that you had mentioned. And I had someone, I'm sure it's copyrighted, but I had him photograph the pages because I didn't have the book with me. But
that's okay, man.
It's
okay for you.
Yeah, so I'd have the content. But listen, I have an observation and a question about it. When I looked at chapter 1, I thought, why would anyone ever risk hell? After I read that chapter, and it's not a lot, these are real short chapters, that was so frightening that I thought, why would anyone risk for it? And it made me think of the question, back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, they would get people saved by scaring the hell out of them. And I want to ask you that question, if we ought to be doing more of that, or do we stay in grace when we lead people to the Lord? Is there a place for people being frightened away from hell into the Lord's hands?
Well, the Bible says in the book of Jude, saving some, pulling them out of the fire with fear. And because, and people, hell is not preached on anymore. And, and there is a belief out there now that I've noticed that there was somebody that was putting this out everywhere, that just as after Jesus rose from the dead. Yeah, and then they would even comment and say, everybody's in. Well, no, everybody's not in.
Yeah.
And we ought to stop this stuff about, well, we're just all God's babies. No, we're not. No, we're not. God created everyone, and He created the human race, but that don't mean you're God.
Wow, yeah.
We just need to make that real clear, Steve, because we're in an age where, why would I'm such a good person and all of this? No, you're not. No, you're not either. Nah, not until you're born again. If you get born again, then the nature of God comes to live on the inside of you. Until that day happens, the time they'll lie to you right off if they get
I didn't take it. They're holding it behind their back.
Yeah, it's in their nature.
Yeah.
Until they come to the knowledge of the Lord Jesus. And so people say, well, I'm a good person. No, not if you're not born again.
Yeah.
If you're not born again, here's a sobering thought. You are capable of anything.
Yeah.
You're capable of, you're born again.
Yeah,
and
there are people that
override it.
There are people that I've thought about this because there were times we were totally down on our luck 30 some years ago, and people were putting groceries on our floor. But some people are like one meal away from being homeless, or one little thing, and nobody knows what they would do if they were homeless, and how how they would have to survive.
Sure, and especially if they're lost.
Yeah. Well,
if they are lost, then the only thing you've got going for you, you got a couple things that hold people in check. One
Okay.
is they probably had a parent or a grandparent that instilled in them enough in their soulish man, their mind, their will, and their emotions to just hold themselves in check. And then you have the law out here that'll put somebody in jail.
No.
And those two things hold lost people in check.
Yeah.
That's it.
I have a question that I don't know if you've touched on this in your own research, Robin, but having to do with salvation and those that are lost, not born again. In Hollywood, more and more it becomes more and more prevalent how lost Hollywood is. I mean, I always thought most of them are probably lost. Most of them probably haven't received the Lord. But I began to look at Telegram, and there's these things going around where so many celebrities who we would all recognize, who we do all recognize, had multiple photos taken where they were flashing occultic signs with their hands. There's these things they do with their eye, with their hands, with their signs, and they're intentionally telling you, Satan is my God. They're Satanists. And if people knew where to look, how prevalent it was, they would be startled. Has God talked with you at all about him, how he's going to get a hold of Hollywood? Anything along those lines?
Well, David says this. He said, "My sin is ever before me." So people sin. They know when they're doing wrong. You're dealing with a group of people, or I should say people in this day and time. What you're dealing with is that people don't see, we don't know anything about covenant. We don't know anything about covenant means most civilization is just civilization because relationship with God, and they call them civilized. People that don't believe in God usually end up in the civilized modern generation. Because, see, now they have to make you sign a piece of paper stacked this thick to make you promise you'll pay for a washing machine that you bought on credit.
That's true. Yeah.
There's no honor. They don't have a lot of honor, and people they recognize that. And so you're dealing with now, I think most religion and most people, I'll go ahead and tell you something. I want to, I'm just looking for a place to jump off with this.
Yeah.
But I remember going out to, the Lord gave me a word. I went out to Biltmore. Do you know, you've heard of Biltmore?
Yeah, Biltmore Hotel type of stuff, right?
Well, yeah, but the Biltmore Estate.
Okay.
And it's in Asheville. And the Biltmore Estate was built by George Vanderbilt. And get this, if you could see it, it's the largest, Jeff may find a picture of it, he can put it up on the screen, but it is the largest personal private residence in America.
Wow.
And it was envisioned and built by a 26-year-old man named George Vanderbilt. And what it was is it was so, what got me about it was a man's vision at that age. I mean, how many 26-year-olds do you meet that had this kind of vision in 1895 to build such an estate? Steve, the estate is not measured by square feet. It's measured by acreage inside the house.
Oh, my goodness. Are you serious?
The house is like, I think, 4 acres inside. And it sits on like 125, it was on 125,000 acres of land. The man employed 2,000 people. He built the town Biltmore there below him. He had a railroad spur come into his property in order to bring material in. That's it.
Look
right
at that. There it is.
And so when you pull up on the grounds, you'll come in, the way I'm looking at it, you'll come in from the right. And when you pull up, you just pull up past those trees and suddenly, or down below those trees, and suddenly the whole estate appears on your right.
Wow.
And so most of his land now became what we know as the Pisgah National Forest.
And you see that, show that again for a second, Jeff. It has that big old bus in front, which is dwarfed.
Right, that's right.
It's just a big old bus there, and it just looks like a little toy car.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and he was 26 years old when he built that, when he started that. It took him 5 or 6 years to build it, and it was only him and his mother lived there. And then he married, and it was him, his mother, and his wife. He had one daughter, and that's it. And his dog Cedric. Well,
Wow.
he built 2 churches. He built churches for people to attend there. He was a real giver, a real philanthropist and so forth. And I think he only started with $6 million. He seemed to be now one of the least favorites of his of his dad and his grandfather and all that. And so what he did is, I was touring this one day, and I've toured it several times because it's just amazing. And his friend Thomas Edison wired the place and gave him would show up on the property and take him motoring in one of his new cars he had. And you're talking about vision, and you're talking about things like that, And I was looking at so much more to it. There's so much there. But I was talking to one of the curators there at one of the rooms you're in, and I said, George Vanderbilt was a giver, wasn't he? He was real generous. She said, you're very perceptive. She said he was very, very generous. Said he would give, and it was obvious he built the churches, he built businesses for the people. This is what she said. She said he had a belief in what he called the social gospel. And I didn't like that term, because I don't like socialism or anything like that.
Yeah.
And usually when something named social gets connected to something, it's not good. But she said what he meant by that was that he believed in leaving everything better than he found it.
Oh, that's good.
For the next generation. Well, I went to the Lord about that, and I said, Lord, what about this social gospel? And the Lord spoke to me, and he said, everyone in his day had a basic understanding of God. All of them knew who Jesus was.
Wow.
They knew who God was. They knew because they had, if nothing else, they had a background of Catholic Church, the Catholic Church. And they all had this social, in their everyday life, they had the gospel. They understood. That's why he built churches. But he said what people didn't have an understanding was leaving the next generation with jobs and livings and a way to provide for their families. So he went that direction. The Lord said, nowadays, this generation has basic knowledge of God. They don't know God. They play with all these religions like Satanism. They play with Buddhism. They play with Islam. They have bumper stickers that say coexist, using all the religious symbols, and the cross is the last one, of course.
Yeah.
And they say everybody's equal. They have beliefs of this mess that there's so many spokes in a wheel and all of them lead to the center and so forth, which is bull. And they just throw Jesus in with everything else. And people nowadays don't have a basic knowledge of God, but they all have a knowledge of how to make money.
Interesting.
And how to live. Because they can get online now, and there's 12-year-olds that's made thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on YouTube, on different things like that. And so the Lord told me, he said, what I want you to do in the town in which I've placed you is to put the gospel back in everybody's social life.
Really?
And he said, that is what I'm referring to now as the social gospel. I want the gospel in everything they do socially to bring them back to that knowledge. So you're looking at Hollywood. Their generation knows nothing about God. They don't know anything about it. They're capable of most anything.
And it's
They
the
can do
nicest looking people. This came out of Breitbart last week. They did a full feature. That really attractive, clever-looking,
Yeah.
funny AT&T girl that does all these cute commercials. They did an article on her and she life. It was just, she goes on, and she says it goes out to people that would ever find themselves where it's like,
See,
what do you,
see,
what?
that's a generation. You're one generation away of losing all your freedom because you're own young and start destroying your own posterity. You are in the worst position of any society, any generation we've ever known. And now, last year, worldwide, over 40, since January alone, somewhere over 3 million or close to 3 million. Now, when you think about it, when you can take and lay Timothy Dixon and I went up to D.C. and when they rolled those scrolls out. Remember that event?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And we were up there. It was a prophetic event that Timothy had a dream of. In right behind us, and with witches and the occult, and they stood up on the steps of the Supreme Court, and 3 of them pills in front of everyone. Now, this is the mentality you're dealing with. They said, well, it's a choice. Well, everybody has a choice, but murder is not your choice.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. You don't have a right to do a wrong thing.
Yeah.
And murder is wrong. And any Christian, they're an accomplice to murder. They're an accomplice to murder, and they may get by with it in a degenerated society, but the day's going to come when God will look them right to get this. But it's because nobody has a knowledge of God they haven't retained it in their thinking any longer. So now we don't have to teach people how to make money. We have to teach people more about God and what has happened and who Jesus is and what he did.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, I'm hoping, and of course, we've talked about the Great Awakening that's coming. Mm-hmm. We've talked about the Great Awakening that is happening before our eyes.
Sure.
I mean, even the stuff regarding the occupant of the White House right now, or the purported occupant, however you say that, there's a Great Awakening. I'm looking at this thing, and there's been prophetic words over the years about how God's going to change Hollywood to Hollywood, and of course that would be our desire. But what's it going to take? Because God's going to have to either do something drastic across the board for Hollywood to take notice, because they're all in this club. There's this satanic occultic club, to me, from what I can see, and they've all joined. So I mean, what have you seen any of that for the future?
Yeah, what we are in right now, Steve, is we're in a fight for survival in this nation.
Yeah.
And everything it holds dear. I didn't know we were going this direction, but here we are. We'll just step on off.
Yeah.
Our founding fathers of this nation, they would give a speech or quote something. They would quote the Bible anywhere from 7 to 15, 20 times in one speech. And they quoted the Bible more than pastors do today, more than most pastors. And what you have to look at is they had that basic understanding.
Wow.
Even Benjamin Franklin, who was one of the most, as we would say, unreligious founding father, signed the Declaration and the Constitution, which everybody didn't do that. He signed them both. He stood up and said this. He said, we prayed to God all those years during the Revolution, and he answered our prayer.
Wow.
And he said, if a sparrow can't fall without him seeing it, how do we think a nation can rise without him? And so this was their mentality. And so we're in this position right now that we must turn this nation. Not too long ago I saw and it's turning right now.
Yeah.
Everybody just get ready. Just hang on, because what's about to happen next is going to shock you. I mean, this thing is about to turn so hard and so fast, and they're about to just collide. Two forces. We're about this far from a collision.
Really,
and
really.
when it hits, you're going to see things happen that you never thought you would see. So just stay with it. There's things I can't say right now, but there was a major portal closed this week. It was closed. I was there when it closed.
Wow.
And it was a major portal that put
Yeah,
it that
yeah.
way.
I hear
Well,
you.
all of that closed over the south this week.
Good. Wow.
Oh, it
I
was
love it.
Satan's southern border. That was his southern border to his kingdom. And it was closed, and he never expected it would happen. But it did happen. And it's about to turn now. Everything's about to turn.
Wow.
I'll say this one more thing before we get into this, that I had a prophetic vision of and this is all I can say about it right now, because some very important people got in touch with me concerning it. But I saw two leather rings, just rings, and they were mounted to a wall, and I could see it. I could see and they were just leather rings, like. And Joe back at it again, and my eagle staff was setting in the ring.
Oh, wow.
And the Lord told me, he said, the prophets will hold his position until he walks back into his place.
Yes, Lord. Yeah. Wow. Robin.
So, so that's where we are. The prophetic road. We must not shut up now, because the prophetic road is almost to the end of what we saw in the very beginning. God declares the end from the beginning, and from the ancient times of things that haven't happened. That's all the way a prophet works. A prophet goes into the future, sees the end, comes back to the beginning, and starts declaring it. And he declares the end from the beginning. But people didn't understand prophets, and prophecy expected the end to show up at the beginning. But that's not the way it works.
No, that's to unfold.
It's declared.
Yeah.
It's declared from the beginning. And now, Steve, the only way I know to tell you is we're about this far on going to walk back on a prophetic road. So get this silliness out of everybody's mind about 2024. Get rid of that. 2024. Oh, we'll run in 2024. You wait till 2024.
We won't have a country.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself as a believer, waiting till 2024. Fix 2020 before anything else is handled.
Totally.
And then 2024 will handle itself. And so we're not leaving 2020 alone, my brother.
That's good.
I'm not
Good.
leaving 2020 yet.
That is such good news, Robin.
Because,
And we all joined in this. None of us pre-planned this. Not long after November 3, first it started with Kat, and then a few weeks later, and then I don't remember how far in, just weeks you were in, and it has never stopped. We've never pulled back, and it's just like, man, I call it my tribe, not my tribe. It's the Lord's tribe, but it's the prophetic tribe that says we're not letting this thing go.
No, I'm not turning it loose. As for me and my house, I'm not turning it loose. Now, you know what, Steve? I know this is going to change the subjects here and grab another gear. But, I'm really led to tell you something, and your viewers. I started talking about this Sunday morning. We're talking about prophecy and prophetic things.
Yeah.
So I want to go ahead and just lay something out there for the viewers, and then maybe we'll talk about what we were, we had said last time we were going to speak about. But, see, there's an event coming up. And there was somebody on my team came to me the other day and said, there was a witch and a warlock showed up in your town down here. They came in a convenience store late at night in all their priestly garbs and all. And people are wondering what's happening. There's the big gathering in Arizona they're talking about of witches and stuff like that. Now, the prophetic streams know about this stuff. Everybody else may be ignoring it. I don't know. But you say, well, what is going on here? What is going on? Well, 2/22/2022 is believed that a portal is going to open into the earth. See, the Bible talks about portals. You know, Elijah called fire down out of heaven, or out of a portal in heaven. The windows of heaven, the portals of heaven, were opened and saved Noah and his family from the flood. Windows of heaven or portals were opened in Elisha's day, and the famine was broken. When Jesus was baptized and he came up out of the water, it said the heavens were opened, or a portal, all the way to the throne of God. And so when these things about portals opening are not far out, and both sides of the thing understand it, the dark side and the light side. We all know they open, and we all know there's set times. It's what comes through them that has to be controlled.
Yeah.
So see, the occultic world believes that on that day it's going to open. Everybody knows something's up on 2022.
Wow.
Everybody knows this. Now, something. Oh, why I'm telling you this? Maybe
That's good.
This is
Yeah.
where.
And when you
Okay.
say, Robin, just to
Now-
clarify that question, and when you say everyone knows, are you referring to both
Anyone
the ungodly side and believers as well, or what? Or are you saying this is only the
Yes.
ungodly side?
Yes.
Both.
No. People in the prophetic world knows that
Okay.
something's up on 2/22/22.
Okay.
People in the occultic world knows something's up on 2/22/22.
Okay.
And they're trying to bring something about that they tried to bring about in 2015. In several different meetings, shut them down. And that's what this book is about, the pool and the portal. In certain actions.
I have a question. Can you hold Jeff? We're having some connection problems and it keeps freezing. Jeff, do we need to go out and come back in because it seems to be getting just a little bit worse?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
We're going to kick you out and have your team come right back because it keeps breaking up on us, Robin, and we're missing. Okay, so.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes our first fix on all of that is to just kick it off and then have them come back in. A lot of times it'll grab a new, whatever we call it, a channel, whatever. It grabs you some new space. And,
gives you a little extra juice.
Yeah, and then sometimes all those delays go away. Robin's hitting some really important stuff. So we hope and pray we didn't kick him too far off so he didn't get back on. But yeah, these are amazing times that Robin is sharing. It's just profoundly interesting. I know Robin goes into places that he can't even tell most of us about, and they get things done in the spirit realm on God's calendar and God's timing, God's way with God's people. And they do things that they can't talk about because we don't want to alert the enemy to it. They don't, but then he'll come back and say what got accomplished, and then he won't necessarily say what they did to accomplish it, because again, we don't want to alert the other side. So one of you, I don't know if you guys need to call up John or something and see if he understands.
Yeah, let's give them just like a couple. They could be resetting their router or something.
Yeah. So anyway, these are absolutely amazing times. By the way, maybe I'll talk out of school and I'll stop if he comes right back on. But so Johnny N, I want us to get this kind of right. I may not get this exactly word for word, but he said, the Rams suddenly won yesterday in the Super Bowl, and he wrote and said, "Do you think it's just a coincidence that the very final play was Donald tackling?" There's another word, not tackling, but sacking Joe. And that's how the game ended. Donald sacked Joe. That was it, and the Rams suddenly won. They were not going to win the game until that.
Yeah, the exact words. I'm sure it's just a big coincidence that the game ends with Donald sacks Joe.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? So Anyway, hey, we got you back there, Robin. Good, good, good. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I heard you. I heard what y'all were
okay.
talking about.
Yeah,
That
Donald
is
Sachs
true.
Joe. Did you see that? That was amazing.
Yeah, let me tell you something about that. 2 days ago, I had a dream of three Bengal tigers.
Really?
There were three, and one of them had one half of his face was something wrong with it, and the hair was gone, and the other side was good. And there were three Bengal tigers, and then at the Super Bowl, the Bengals lost by 3.
Wow.
It was 3, and they did terrible in the first half. Tried to recover in the second half, and lost by 3. And when it came right down to it, right at the very end, right at the very crunch moment, crunch time, right at the
Yeah.
collision time, Donald beat Joe.
It was so awesome.
And
It was like, go
Donald
ahead.
had an attitude. He had an attitude. And did you notice that? He had a little attitude. Pointing at his finger.
I actually hadn't caught that it was Donald tackling
Yeah.
Joe until Johnny said it this morning, and I thought I should have known that.
And
I should have seen that.
yeah, and the entire screen. It didn't show the two quarterbacks as usual. It showed Donald and Joe the whole time.
I love
That was their
so
still image. And because God speaks where people are listening.
he does, and that was like all of that action happened. The Bengals were winning. It was over. They were slapping each other on the helmets. We about got this. Everybody had a bunch of timeouts, and like that, and it got down to 1:53 seconds, right in there, and they kept
Right.
stopping the clock, and that drive kept on. It was so
And they
that
and
was
they
so fun to
lost.
watch.
And they lost. And notice it was a ram that beat them. And it was in the year 2022, and Genesis 22 is about the ram being
Oh
offered
wow!
on the mountain. So it was about the ram. It was the sacrifice beat the tiger, and the tiger lost by 3. And I saw that 3 Bengals, and I saw one
Awesome.
half is when they lost, and so forth, and everything. It was all prophetic in this time.
Yeah.
And it was only the second time. It's the second time the Rams went to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, which is 22 or 2. And so
Yeah.
you're looking at everything happening right now prophetically. And so
And
anyway,
just
the
like
whole
you
thing.
said, some people say, well, why would God talk that way? Because number one, because he can. Number two, because he wants to. Number three, because there's a few billion people watching. For him not to communicate at that time would be very unlike God.
Well, and most of the Christians that didn't attend church was watching that game.
Yeah.
And so what you're looking at is have you ever noticed how many television shows are prophetic?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever noticed that? Because it's called tell a vision. And so there's a vision being told, and so many things are prophetic. It's just like you notice when Brother Hank said that on Flashpoint, said, I see a convoy. We got us a convoy.
And he literally didn't know that was going on like that. And when he said that,
right. And now look at it. The convoy has begun. And I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and we were talking about some of these things, and he said, and he said, even before then, in the days of Smokey and the Bandit and all of that with the truck and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Robin, I got Robin the Lord got it for. It was her dream car, Trans Am, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, right at this time, she's got the car and all this happening. Everything's prophetic.
Yeah.
And where we're going now, Steve, it'll go down to the last few minutes, at goal line, right at the goal line.
Right
But
when it looked like
Donald-
the other side is congratulating each other. We won over these
we
guys.
got it. But right at the very last, Donald will beat Joe.
That is
That's just the way it's going to happen.
Cool.
So I know,
Very cool.
you know, everybody in the prophetic noticed a lot of that.
Yeah.
And but
well, we were talking about something when we tried to clear the line, which we did. So I don't remember. Do you remember where you were at on that?
yeah, we were talking about portals and things like that opening.
Yeah.
And in 22, that's what's coming up.
Yeah.
The occultic world's all in a buzz about it. The prophetic world's in a buzz about it because everyone knows that is a time. But now you got to understand why the occultic world is up in the air about it. And I'm going to try to explain just a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Okay, what it is that, see, Satan operates in legal time. He don't have any spiritual knowledge. Revelation, I should say. He has knowledge of the spirit world because he is a spirit, but he has to operate in legal time. He don't know anything else but that. That's why when the wise men came into Jerusalem looking for the king of the Jews, Herod asked the wise men, what time did you see that star? What time did you see it? Because if Satan had have known, he would have just acted on it. But he don't understand revelation. He don't understand prophecy. Fortune tellers, for instance, people say, what's the difference in a fortune teller and a prophet? Well, a big difference, because a fortune teller only operates in what was. A prophet operates in what is to come. And so a fortune teller can sit and look at you, and remember this, they have demons that work with them, but they also operate in manipulation. And so they can tell you things about, your father had this favorite red shirt that you liked, and you remembered him wearing it. Well, yeah, but that's what was. Your aunt could have told you that your daddy wore that shirt all the time. And so a familiar spirit operates in what was, not what is to come. See, and then they operate in manipulation like this. I look at Steve Schultz. I could look at you and say, Steve Schultz, oh yes, you're old man Schultz's boy.
That's good.
See? Yeah, well, and then, but that didn't take a lot of knowing. That's a lot of manipulation. And when someone goes in to see a fortune teller, they have to put down their credit card information and information about themselves, and so they automatically know your name, your address, your driver's license number, or whatever else you put down. But because it's in these certain familiar trappings and these low lights and somebody with their hand over a crystal ball and throwing out tarot cards and stuff, then all of a sudden, and certain music playing, suddenly somebody is all, oh, look at this. Oh, it must be supernatural. No, it's not supernatural. It's the lowest form of manipulation you have ever been involved in.
Wow.
And so, but prophets will come in and tell you something in destiny to come. And the only reason a prophet tells you what happened in your past is because they can't get through to your future until they deal with your past, because the people won't let go of it. They won't let go of their past in order to see their future.
That's really good, Robin.
So, but a prophet operates in destiny and tells you what's coming, the plans God has for you, and what to prosper you and give you a future.
Yeah.
And that is supernatural.
That's good.
So,
good.
Anyway, so they operate in what's called numerology. They operate in cards, stars. They look at stars, and they operate in signs of times, nothing more. And so they know something's up on 2/22/22. They know something's about to happen. Now, the reason they know this, and I'm about to blow the lid off of something for witches and all that are watching, is because, see, like you say, 2/22/22, right? We got that? 2 If Jeff could put those numbers up, we could look at it, and I'll show you how they operate.
Okay.
Maybe this is a good intelligence briefing for this.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, it is very good. I'm loving it.
Okay, so we put 2.
He says, his note says, give me a second. He's got to type it in the thing and put the banner up.
All right, 2, 22, 2, 22.
How about like that?
Yeah,
Or do you want the...
2, 22, and then put 20, 22.
Okay.
Put that up there. Yeah. 2, 22, and then do the year, 2022. And I'm going to show you how witches and warlocks operate. This is the way they operate.
And by the way, Illumination inserts 2/22/22 is also a Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. It is a Tuesday. I'll be on the 11th hour that day.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's your other 2. So anyway.
Okay, now I want you to watch this. Now, first thing I want to do is this. I want to multiply something and let you know what they're after. Well, no, let's start with the top. We'll just start with the top. Let's add this. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 0
8.
plus 2 plus 2. What does that equal?
12. Am I saying 1, 2,
12.
3, 4, 5, 6, 12? Yeah.
12. 12 is the number of government.
Yeah, it is.
So we know whatever's going to happen that day, it's going to deal with a government. Okay. What government? All right. 2 times 2 times 2
8
times 2, 2, 2.
Oh.
You know what that equals?
No.
1776.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You can't make that up. Wow.
No, it equals 1776. Now, go back to 2 plus 2.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to deal with the first 3 2s. 2 plus 2 plus 2.
6.
That's 6. Now let's go to the last 3 2s. 2 plus 2 plus 2. 6. So now there's 2 6s here. 2 of them, right? Okay, Now watch this. Okay, so now let's go down and do this. 2 times 22 times 222.
What does that come out
You know what that equals?
No.
9,768. If you add 9768, it comes to 30. Add 3 plus 0, it's 3. Go up to 1776, add that, 1 plus 7 plus 7 plus 6 is 21. Add that is 3. So now you've got a 3 and a 3 is 6. We know it's dealing with a government that was founded in 1776, and then you go up to 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So you've got 6, 6, and the sum of the next 2 is 6. You have 6, 6, 6.
So is your point that there's the good side, which we were talking about, and then the enemy takes his side of it, which is the 666.
Yes.
Enemy's trying to do something bad on that day, taking opportunity in a portal.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
He knows that day that I know this is wild, man. This is so wild. And
well, this is called gematria. Is that the name gematria? I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
It kind of includes it. And when people say, well, that's numerology. That's numerology, Brother Robin. That's new. Okay. God's not in numerology. Well, now God counts.
Yeah.
Now you got to remember, he counts.
He's very specific on numbers.
Oh yeah. Well, he counts. For instance, just so that people know. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form of void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light. There was light. God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. The darkness he called light, and and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning, first day. Then he comes down here and names second day. Then he comes down and names third day. God counts.
Yeah.
He counts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not that counting is wrong. It's that Satan in Ezekiel said he seals up the sum. He sums numbers in dates and times and seasons, and he seeks to operate in those numbers. That's called the occult.
Yeah.
He does it without God. All magic has a mathematical base. All of it has a mathematical base. And God would have never counted past 7 had man not sinned. Everything was just to 7. He stopped at 7 until man sinned. Then there had to be another number added, which was 8. Noah and the eight that he saved, a new beginning. Then there was one more number added, and it was on the day of Pentecost, and the 9 gifts of the Spirit, the 9 fruit of the Spirit, to bring you back power to the first 7 days before you sinned, before sin entered.
Wow.
So God only counts and looks at us in single digits. Single digits. And everything has to be added down to the single digit. And when you get to that, you know 1 is the one and only God. God is one God. 2 is unity, and it's division also, but 2 is the second member of the Godhead, Jesus. 3 is divine completion. 4 is establishment. 5 is grace. 6 is the number and authority of man. 7 is completion, and 8 is new beginning, and 9 is the power gifts of the Holy Ghost, the fruit of the Spirit, and finality and judgment. So you've got the full 9 numbers, and that's all God looks at.
That's good.
Grace. And they operate in is numbers. Remember the chart we showed last time, that prophetic calendar and all of that?
Yeah.
This is a prophetic calendar. Satan seals up those sums. He seeks to operate in numbers because that's all he can do. And he knows that there's certain times, seasons, and appointments and everything that come together. Well, in 2022, if you could see that chart again, and if you can remember what we talked about before, in 2022, going up toward the top of that calendar is the only place on it where 666 shows up. And that shows up in this year. You see 2022? See it?
Looking for you. Yeah, there it is. 6.
The sum is 6.
There's,
Go up diagonally.
right there.
2 plus 3 plus 1. Look at it, 6. Go up to 2040. Once again, 6. And it's the last place on the calendar that'll do it. That's it. And that's the portal that's opening. And they know it's going to open. And they've got all their witches involved. They've got all the occultic world involved. They've got all of this involved because of why. Why? Okay, here is why. According to them, now I'm talking to you about what they believe. Remember that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, you're not telling us biblical fact. You're telling us this is research of what the enemy. Am I saying that about right?
He operates.
Yeah, okay.
He operates within this scheme of numbers right here.
Okay.
But now they are real, and they're prophetic time. The problem is the body of Christ can move time around. Remember Hezekiah said it was added 15 more years. He moved the sundial back. And remember Joshua could command the sun and the moon to stop for a while. And times and seasons can be changed by the body of Christ. But Satan's locked in to legal time. He can't do anything else. That's too heavy for the program.
Good. No, that's good. I mean, yeah, because he is, maybe in our terms, he might be a genius mathematician. He might be a genius trigonometry, all the different geometries, but that it's robbed of its power. So he operates within mathematics.
That's right.
And
legal time.
Yeah.
See, legal time. 2,000 years from when Jesus rose would be the legal 2,000 years. So all he can do is look at that and know that when that time comes, he's close to the return of the Lord somewhere. He don't have a clue where. but he knows in legal numbers that's where it moves. But that depends if the body of Christ is going to move time around for 80 years or not. That just depends on what, because it says the husbandman waits for the precious fruit of the earth, then he'll send the former and latter rain. In other words, every generation has had the opportunity to bring the king back, but none of them has done it. It depends on when the believers in the earth start calling for his return. And when they call for it, they'll maneuver themselves into a time where he will return. But Satan has no idea of that. He cannot operate in that realm. So he looks at the calendar, not just the American calendar, but he looks at a prophetic time. And when the scripture says in Ezekiel 28, it says he seals up the sum, it actually means that he is a scientist. He understands what makes the tides roll in and the tides roll out. But then again, the sons of Issachar had understanding to recognize the signs of the times to know what men ought to do.
Well, right, and the sons of Issachar didn't have to be mathematicians. All they had to have is the revelatory gift, where he's doing all this mathematics and trying to do what he does with that. They just know things
because that's all he has.
Yeah.
That's all he has to operate on.
Well, he knows all the whole quantum things. That's how they're trying to get the super colliders to open up the portals. He understands that kind of mathematics that might even open a portal.
Well, that's right. And see, and if you want to know what they're planning on trying to do in 2022, this is their grand scheme. They are absolutely now this is amazing, because you have 6, 6, and 6 show up in these numbers. Then you have 666 show up on the prophetic calendar, and it begins in the year we're in. You have this everything trying to happen right here. But here's something you may not know, that on 3/20/22 to 3/22/22, the occultic world believes that the portal opens and they can walk up Jacob's ladder into self-perfection.
Really?
They believe that in March the 20th to March 22nd. Well, if you add those numbers up, it comes up to 11 and 13, which equals 24, which equals 6 again. They know what they're doing, and they're looking at these times, and they're all up in the air about it. Okay, watch this. In 1777, that's when the first Masonic lodge opened up and set itself to bring in the new world order into this nation, into this world. Well, here's you something very interesting, Steve. If you add the numbers 1777, it's 22.
Oh, wow.
In other words, they plan on this year bringing in the new world order. This is their whole big plan.
So by us studying the numbers, we know what his plan is.
We know what his plan is.
We're studying the same numbers that he's studying.
I'm looking at this calendar that Jeff showed.
Yeah.
There's someone else in the occultic world looking at the same one.
Okay.
They just, in some form or fashion, and I'm convinced that high government officials are looking at that too. A lot of them. But nobody showed me that calendar. Only God showed me that calendar. And he said, write it down. I want to show you something. And this is what he showed me. And I could show you so many mysteries out of that thing that they've tried to bring to pass. And I'm convinced that's what they're looking at. I was in a meeting over...
Well, I was just going to ask this question real quick, and then I don't want to mess up your point, but is God intending to quash, bash, trash, what they intend to do on the 22nd? Okay.
Yeah, but he's going to do it through us.
Okay.
He has to operate through his body in the earth, because he gave the earth to that book right there, The Pool and the Portal, was laying on my table.
Show that full screen there, Jeff.
Yeah,
and I went out. So people,
it's called The Pool and the Portal.
There you go.
And inside it is this calendar that I showed you. Inside it is something that tried to happen in 2015 that they couldn't bring about. And they used science, music, entertainment, everything they could to make it happen according to those numbers. And it would have happened, except there was a group of prophets that were in 2 big meetings in the same month of September. They were going to bring that about. They had, the Pope was involved, everybody was involved. And they knew all these major players, I should say, and they were going to bring this about in 2015. They could not bring it about because a group of prophets closed the event down, shut it down. Yeah. CERN went up to full power in September 23rd. It came up to full power. It was shut down. That's all I can tell you, unless you read that book. Now, okay. I had this book laying on my table, my product table, down in, or the team did, in a meeting I was in that I'll tell you sometime where I was. But I had it laid down there. And a lady came up to the table and she said, I was a high priestess in the church of Satan.
Wow.
I got saved out of that. And this is what she did. She picked this book up and she said,
really?
This is not fiction.
Wow.
And she
That's
opened
amazing.
she opened it to certain pages like that calendar and things like that. And she said, and she turned it around backward and showed the back of it. And see, the Lord showed me that right there, and said, draw that, or have that drawn. And I'm trying to get it to the screen. Yeah, it said, have that drawn. She pointed to that on the back, and she said, you have no, something to this effect, how real this is. She said, I know that hand, and I know this book. And so Satanists know, and I couldn't have done that, Steve. I'm not smart enough to invent all this.
Wow.
But the Lord showed it to me. And he sat down beside me. It was almost like he just sat down and told me, write this. And I started writing. And I wrote that whole book as he told me. It didn't even have a plot in my mind. I'm just writing over an event that happened. And that's what came out of it. So when I tell you that they're planning on bringing in the New World Order this year, that's what they plan on doing.
And are you saying that those between those dates, 222 and 322, is their timetable to attempt it?
That's their timetable. And they just would wish everything about them that I hadn't told you that. Because now prophets know and believers know where to stand.
Where to pray.
It's going to start in 2/22/2022. That's the first 6. That's the first opening of the portal, the gate. And they know, they say it's going to open that day. Now, it's amazing that the occultic world knows more about this stuff than the church does. And so that's why we see things come into being. That's how a certain president in 2009 became president, and it felt like the church had their head in a bag screaming,
yeah, it did. Yeah.
And nobody could hear them for 8 years.
Right.
It's because at that time it threw us 28 years in the future. And we didn't even know how to operate in that time. Because what happened during his presidency was not supposed to happen till 28 years later, which put it around 2030 in that time. Think about that.
Wow.
Down around.
Yeah, I mean, when it happened, we were all just all believers. We would just shake our heads saying, how did this happen? And every single thing out of his mouth or out of his decree was against God. Every single thing.
Yeah, and if you notice, he carried every trait of the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Every trait. Yet he never called himself that. But he was dubbed the Anointed One, the Messiah. It was the spirit of the Antichrist that came from another time. People say, Brother Robin, this stuff is... Do you believe God is supernatural, or do we not?
Yeah.
Do we think that other tongues is just mere languages from the different nations around the world? Or do we believe it's a heavenly language of the Spirit?
Right.
Do we believe in healing, or are we content to wear a mask and put a sign on our church door that says you can't have a temperature to come in here? Well, that's your first clue the church lost sight of the supernatural. When God, think of this, when God, Moses said, show me your glory. He wouldn't leave the mountain. He wanted to see the glory. Well, that's resurrection power. Show me your glory. The Lord said, there's a place by me, and I'll put you in a rock, the cleft of the rock. And he said, I'll pass by you. Well, actually, he didn't walk by him. He passed through him.
Oh, wow.
And he carried Moses' spirit with him into the future to show him his glory. He said, I'll make all my goodness pass before you. Well, at the same time, in another time, there was a man named Elijah in the same cleft of the rock, wearing his tallit around his head. And God came to him, and he carried him into the future. And Moses and Elijah showed up in the future in the spirit with a cloud of glory over their heads, with Jesus standing on a mount, the Mount of Transfiguration, and they went through a time and looked at the Master, and he taught them what was going to happen. And when they went back to their perspective times, Moses' face was glowing so brightly that they had to put a veil over it because they couldn't see the future.
Wow.
They couldn't see what he saw. But when Elijah got back to his time, he started doing some strange things, like parting the water that he had never done before.
No.
And then you see Elisha feeding people. You see famines broken. You see all these kind of things. These anointings, all because time, God carried people around in time.
Wow.
When I was about 9 or 10 years old, the Lord called me from about 30 years in the future. I heard my own voice as a grown man call me. It scared me so bad, I ran to my grandmother. I ran all the way home. It scared me. And it was amazing that he had me standing by some pomegranate trees when he called. And I asked him later, I said, Lord, what was that? And he had me mimic the call. And he said, is that what it sounded like? I said, yes, Lord. I said, Lord, that was me. Now, as a man, he said, yes, I called you from your future in a voice you would understand and respond to. And then later I ended up by these pomegranate trees in this nursery type place of a believer. And the lady told me, said, this is young pomegranate trees. And all of a sudden I looked up and that same wind started blowing. The sky started being overcast. I said, Lord, that was now, wasn't it? He said, yes, you're at the pomegranate trees now while they're babies. You were there in their maturity when I called you.
Oh, man,
and
Robin.
He called from time. Well, see, these portals in time are real, but they're in spirit. They're not in the natural.
Right.
They're spiritual events. Moses and Elijah wasn't physically standing there probably. It was their spirit that could move through time. And that's where they were.
Yeah.
And so these occultic people know. Steve, ask any prophet that you talk to that has knowledge of this, or anybody in the prophetic. Ask them how excited witches and warlocks are right now. Look at Arizona, this big thing they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just a big thing up in the air. Witch and a warlock showed up around my town here the other day. They're all gathering for this portal to open. They don't understand that we won't let come through it what they want to come through it. They have no spiritual authority, and so we closed it the other day. where they
Oh,
can't
so
get
you've
to one
already
more.
closed that portal. You pre-closed it.
We did it online with
Oh,
all
wow.
these
So it's
people.
not like you're not instructing people, remember when 222 comes, you got to close that portal. You're saying you already went to work on that and did it.
Well, we started on it, but see, we're in all different time zones. We're
Okay.
everywhere. What
Okay.
we need to do is have people stand up and say, you're not bringing the New World Order in
That's
this
good.
year. It's not going to happen.
Good.
You know, I gave a prophetic word about 2 months ago. I said, this thing is going to carry into March of this year. Well, I didn't know then that that was their dates. March 22nd is their ending date, and it starts on February 22nd. The whole thing, and it ends March 22nd. Well, all I knew was it was carrying into March. But now we have understanding of this. And we saw in the prophetic Super Bowl that
Yeah.
Donald will beat Joe at the very last minute when the collision happens.
Oh, man.
And it all happened in 22.
And
And
you
the
know what's
Ram-
interesting? He didn't just beat him; he sacked him. He sacked him.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
you throw down the.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
And
throwdown, man.
do you want me to tell you how it happened last night?
Yeah.
Here's another
Yeah,
prophetic
yeah.
event. Here's another prophetic thing to it that people may not have seen. I watched it, and I don't watch television. That's really something for me to watch.
Yeah.
I had to cut off every commercial
Yeah. Yeah.
and then time it and let the game start again. But that's all right. But here
Yeah.
was the thing, and if everybody will notice, there was occultic commercials on every
There
almost
were a
every
lot of
commercial.
that. Mm-hmm.
Real occultic commercials.
Right.
Okay, but watch this. The Bengals were winning, and the guy was going to catch a pass, and a ram was covering him real close, and the Bengal reached around and grabbed his face mask
Yeah.
and pulled him, and this is the only reason he caught the ball and got ahead was because he face masked the guy.
He
But
illegally
no-
face masked the guy.
Illegally did it, but
Oh.
no referee called it. And the people in my living room, my family and some of my team, or the team I work with, said, "Oh man, they got away with that, didn't they?" I said, "No." I said, "That'll come back up here in just a while. You watch." I said, "They'll pay for that." So at the very end, when it came up again, you see that what happened when the ram ended up catching what he did, and the Bengals got penalized for something, and the next thing you know, they win the Super Bowl. And they win it by mostly what the face mask cost them. And so here they have won this thing. Well, the guy's team that did the illegal move was Joe's team.
So good.
There was an illegal move in 22. There was an illegal move that came up as a harvest, and Donald beat Joe. All over that. So this thing everything is prophetic right now.
Yeah.
You know, I gave a word not long ago, and I put it on the internet, and I don't know if a lot of people noticed because it was named something a little bit different, but I heard a word back in, probably, let's see, May. I gave it in May, but I heard it in April 22nd, 2021. I said, everything is on the table right now. I said, the bear is growling. The Ukraine is fainting. And I said, and the jackal in the White House is starting to chew his own leg off to get out of the trap they've put him in.
Wow.
And then I said this, and this is not on the posted version of it, but I went on to say, I said, I don't know how far out I'm seeing right now, but I saw the bear growling, which is Russia, the Ukraine fainting, and the jackal, which is are right now. In 22, Genesis 22, the ram was offered. And we won by Genesis 22 when the ram was offered. That's how we won this whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, then we see this about all these numbers showing up, all in 22. We see that they were planning on bringing the new world order in 22. Now we see the bear growling, Ukraine fainting, the jackal chewing his leg off in 2022. All of this happening in 22. And it was the Rams' second time to go.
Yeah, so
and
good.
win.
And Robin, that the whole thing about, I don't know if you have any more detail or interpretation of that, but a bear really will try and chew its leg off to get free.
A jackal will.
Or a jackal, and so there is some sort of equivalency that's actually going on that we don't see. The metaphor is he's chewing his leg off. Is there anything else that the Lord? I mean, that's a desperation move to get out of there.
Exactly what it is.
I mean, that sounds extremely desperate. Will we see something that would illustrate that? Do you think?
Yes, you will. Just keep that in your mind.
Okay.
Because what you're looking at is the jackal that's in the White House right now probably has no clue about most of the stuff he says or does.
Okay.
If I had time to tell you on the prophetic timeline, when Jezebel was thrown off the wall, there were 2 or 3 eunuchs that did it. The Bible says 2 or 3. That's a strange thing. The Bible
never
is
strange.
Yeah, because it never says or 3, which put it in a decision mode. Well, one of the eunuchs that threw her off the wall became president when she fell.
Oh, really?
Well, that was her own people threw her off the wall back in the days of John McCain. And it said her own people threw her down. When they threw her down, the one that threw her down became president. And it said he had 2 or 3. He did 2 terms, and then when they asked him, they said, "Would you do a 3rd term?" He said, "If I could put an earpiece in somebody's ear and me just control things from behind the scene, I would be really up for a 3rd one."
Yeah, I heard him say that.
And now we see the jackal that's up there now. How many times has he been seen with an earpiece? He stayed, and get this,
about the same way. He's running out of every option he's ever had. What?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And this is what I think.
Okay.
See, now don't start feeling sorry for that jackal, because he was evil from the very start.
Yeah.
But he really believes he's the president.
Yeah.
Well, you put a man in a basement, put him in a mask, show him only videos you want him to see, tell him he's the greatest thing since apple butter and sliced bread, and you start to show him things like this, and you put him in these modes where you're just brainwashing and doing all this, and he's got mental issues to start with. It's very easy to convince him that's who he is. He thinks he's the most popular man on the face of the earth. But something's about to happen, and he'd just soon chew his own leg off than to be caught where he's caught.
Wow.
So there's a lot going on right now, and there's so much I can't say about the man in the basement right at this moment.
Yeah, I hear you. I understand. Wow, Robin. Wow. Well, good stuff, Robin.
I hope it's been a good intelligence briefing.
Very good. Very,
we got
very,
knocked off the air.
Yeah, it was even better because even after you came back, it was even better because we had a clear connection and you got into some stuff. Even the stuff where we just were chatting about the game while we were waiting for you to come on, and then that opened it up for you to really drill down on that. Helped us a lot. A lot of people are glad that piece, got in there. So helpful. Well, tell people how to get your book, because I know a bunch of people wanting to get that book about the portal, the pool and the portal. I know your motivation in life, from what I know about you, is not to sell books. This is something to help people. Is why you did this.
Yeah, I did. and I was being obedient to the Lord. I pulled that book off the shelf for I don't know how long the office could tell me, and I just pulled it off for probably, I don't know, 6 months, 8, and people was wanting it. My motivation is not to move books.
Yeah.
And I didn't put it back on till the Lord said to. And here in the last couple months, he said, start talking about that book now. I need you to talk about that book. And so now it's out. I don't know how many has been ordered. But if you just go to my website, robindbullock.com, and go to the product page, you'll see the pool and the portal. And just order it there. There's no delay on it coming. The only delay reason you didn't get yours is somehow or another the office, I don't know what happened, but I was going to personally send you that, Steve.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's not too late. Maybe someone can put it in there. But
anyway, we'll see to that today.
I'll keep making photocopies, or Illumination will do it for me until I get it. But I'm reading it to tell the people need to know this is not a hard reading book. The chapters are very short.
No, it's
extremely potent though.
Well, let's see.
Really potent.
It's that thick.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's my kind of book because I tend to be on the slow side of reading, so the shorter the better. Just get to the point, and you do.
That's
really
right.
do that in a sense. All right. Well, Robin, God bless you. Thank you so much. Tomorrow's Amanda Grace. That's going to be awesome. Wednesday is Kat Kerr. Very, very good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a great week. And thanks so much for the heads up about 222 and 322. My dad passed 31 years ago on 322. So that's kind of like on that date, the enemy took my dad, but God brought him home. So it's an interesting date to me. So fascinating times.
Well,
all right. Well, God bless you.
Witches and warlocks don't have a right to walk Jacob's ladder. Forget it.
Yeah.
Just forget it.
Really,
everybody
really
ought to stand up. People ought to stand up. Anybody in the prophetic and just start saying you're not bringing a new world order into this world right now.
So
you're not
good.
Doing it.
So good. So
the day comes, it'll come, but this is not that day.
Now we'll have you on. It won't be 222 yet when you come on Monday, right? We'll have
It'll
day
be
or
21.
something.
That should be.
Yeah, so you'll be able to give a last minute instructions on how we pray. We might even pray on the air together.
That's right.
People will pray with you even more than they'll pray after you. So if you end up praying that prayer next Monday, I'll be glad to participate in that as well.